So I'm curious how you getting both sides of the equation, what bad fatherhood did to you or how it impacted you, and then what the presence of a healthy father figure in your life impacted you. I wonder how that changed your understanding of fatherhood and the way you parent your kids.
It's such a good question. And now I have to say good things about my father-in-law, which is my father-in-law, Joel Bustamante, such a good man, such a pain in the ass, but such a good man, right? Growing up with my father passed, he died, he was killed when I was very young.
I'm so sorry, by the way, that's crazy.
I mean, I appreciate it. I don't feel pain because I wasn't old enough to understand it. Exactly. Yeah. And then my stepdad was not a great influence on me. So as I left the house, I didn't know how to be a good man. I knew how not to be, but I didn't know how to be. So then what I found is that I found myself searching for what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. And it was not a healthy experience because, as many men, I think will relate to, when you don't have a direction, you start to kind of wander. So sometimes you're really nice to girls, and then the girl doesn't respond to a nice guy. You get into the friend zone, or she thinks that, you hurt her feelings because she thinks you're friends, but then you try to hold her hand or you try to kiss her cheek and she's outraged, right? And then you learn by getting kind of slapped in the face or slapped on the hand. So then you change. And when we change, we don't change 5 or 10 degrees. We change 180 degrees. So we do a complete turnaround. We're like, oh, don't do that. So instead I'm going to come in, I'm going to be like
the opposite.
I'm going to be the opposite because I see all these other guys getting dates by being dicks. So then you come in and you start being a dick, and maybe you're a dick and you get your hand slapped and then you turn back to being nice. But what ends up happening is inevitably you'll get more success being one way or the other, not some independent mix of the two. And that's what happened to me. I found that for me, being self-righteous and selfish and kind of egotistical and flippant about her feelings tended to get me more success than being caring and being compassionate and being engaged. So I grew up thinking that must be what being a man is, right? That's got to be what being a man is. I never liked it, but it was the practice that I got into.
So you had to practice to be a way you didn't want to be in order to get what you wanted.
It took effort. And I really I didn't know it at the time. I didn't want a woman who wanted essentially an abusive partner.
Yeah.
I wanted a woman who was independent, who didn't even need a partner. But it's very hard to find that woman when you're either being a dick or being nice, right? It's hard to find that independent woman in general a lot of times. So I didn't really know how to be. And because I didn't know how to be, I for sure didn't know how to raise a child. I didn't know how to raise a son or a daughter because you don't fucking even know yourself, really. So I'm exploring and I'm trying to find all this, and thank goodness I find my way to CIA. And CIA helped me to understand that I had trauma. Not in a therapy kind of way where they're like, you have to accept your trauma. They were like, fucking, you got some trauma and you're going to love what we're about to do with it. That's how CIA teaches you
CIA
about trauma.
therapy.
Damn.
It's different.
So they showed us all these things about our trauma, and they were able to teach us how to systematize these things that we were already doing, right? Probing, which is the technical term for what we were doing before, probing to find a vulnerability that you can use to leverage control over another person. That's exactly what we all do when we're pretending to be a good guy or pretending to be a dick to try and get a woman's attention and keep her attention so that we can have sex. All that is probing, manipulation, and control.
Yeah.
And CIA found people like me in enough time to train us and give us that vocabulary.
And what is people like me? What made you prime CIA candidate in that sense?
So there are people who still seek external validation.
Okay.
Not totally independent. We still seek external validation.
Isn't that all of us? It's the biggest addiction in the world.
However, we also don't feel like we have to follow the rules. We don't feel like we have to fit within the confines of the rules. My old sociopathy. So social norms don't apply. Behavioral norms don't apply. Crossing the street at crosswalks is stupid, right? Why do we even have speed limits? These are the kind of thoughts that are common in sociopaths. And when you have that, but you also still have this need to be validated externally, if you don't care about norms, who's going to validate you? There's a weird cross-section, a Venn diagram that's very narrow, where you both are sociopathic and you need external validation. And then the third layer is loyalty. For some reason, because of the way that my trauma worked, I was extremely loyal, needed external validation, but really didn't feel like I needed to follow anybody's rules, except for the person I was loyal to for the purpose that they were pursuing.
And in this case, it was the CIA.
And CIA finds us through their recruitment process, their psych process. I mean, it's not like a questionnaire that gets you hired. It's
right.
3 full days of interviews plus polygraph, so they can find those people in that very narrow subsection of you are just unhealthy enough that you'll acquiesce to our demands, but healthy enough that you can operate on your own and be trusted.
It's quite twisted.
Do you know how many people make it through the interview process? What's the percentage?
So it's very small. I think the numbers that we were given, CIA receives about 30,000 applicants a year, overt applicants, not covert invitations, but 35,000 a year. And then CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people. 300 to 400 go through training per year, right? So 1% go through training.
And that's where the loyalty comes in, because you're getting the validation already, because you're like, oh, I'm only 1%, and this is where I'm going to get validated over and over again.
And loyalty itself is such an innate personality quality.
Yeah, you can't really teach someone to be loyal in that sense.
Sonia is the most loyal person I've ever met. It's a quality that's so strong in you that when we first started dating, it was the outlier. Was one of the outliers. After I got to know you, I was like, that's so important, because you would know how often it happens that someone actually is not loyal.
It's funny because the loyalty that you're probably talking about,
it's a different kind of loyalty.
Because it's selective. You're not loyal to everybody.
No, I'm not loyal to everybody.
And once the loyalty is given, it doesn't get taken away.
No.
That's secret life.
Yeah.
Loyalty. Yeah. There probably aren't many people who get that.
Yeah.
Right? But once it's given, it doesn't get taken away, which makes you rise to the challenge. And that's exactly what we have with CIA. Right? CIA finds the people who will give them the loyalty, and then they push that person to constantly rise to the occasion. Right? And they do that not because they care about you as a person, but because they need to maximize your productivity as a CIA officer. And after 20 or 25 or 30 years of your career, whatever trauma that you endure as an officer is irrelevant to them, because they've optimized your service, and then you're done.
You have to be traumatized to choose to give up your life in such a way.
And we call it too dumb to quit. That's the term we use. We're too dumb to quit. So dumb that when they're like, I have an idea for you, Sonia. We're going to send you to a dangerous place, undercover, with none of your real identity. We're not going to make it so that the president has any responsibility to say that you're an American citizen at all. And what we really need you to do is steal secrets and then escape on your own. And how do you feel about that?
No. But I know there was a past version of me that would have said yes.
We would say yes.
Because I would feel special and important.
And you would probably say, give me $10 million. Right?
That's the thing. How are you paid? Yeah.
This is the worst side of it. CIA officers are paid on a government salary.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We're paid on a government salary, and we're not paid very much. And anything that you generate outside of the government salary, whether it's something undercover, whether you steal money from a drug cartel, any revenue that you capture has to be recorded, turned in, and then it goes into a black budget that CIA can use for other operations outside of congressional control.
I love that you say this, because I actually wanted to ask you a question. When preparing for this episode with you, I went to study the sentiments of the crowd. And I've noticed a tendency of a lot of comments saying that you are actually still a spy, and that you are on a tour to promote CIA and hire a recruit.
One of the hardest things about what I do now is trying to dodge that bullet, trying to dodge the negativity bullet. And I've been vocal now for years. And what you're seeing is the sentiment in many, many comments. And that's a kind sentiment. He's recruiting for CIA. That's a kind sentiment. There's
the unkind sentiment.
There are horrible sentiments out there.
It's heartening to see people come in your defense.
For sure.
I love that because it shows that you have built depth with people who don't know you, and that's a powerful testimony.
I totally agree, and I very much appreciate all of those positive comments. I appreciate the negative comments too because they make for viral content. But I appreciate the positive comments, and when we were talking about my father-in-law, this is one of the things that in my opinion makes him such an amazing father figure. He watches all of my content. My wife doesn't watch it. I even have fans that don't watch everything, but my father-in-law watches everything.
Like our mom.
That's
There's always
so
that,
sweet.
at least that one person.
That's actually really
back.
sweet.
Isn't it?
Because there's nothing, like, I remember when I first started putting content out, it was just such a vulnerable thing for me to do. And till date, the people that have supported me the most are the people that were not a part of my life. So other people that I met in my content creation journey, but not my friend from high school. You know, like your cousins, your friends, they're not the ones supporting you. It's like the friend, like it's the you who I just met. And it's like, oh, cool, nice video. So it really means a lot when someone in your family or someone that you care about cares about what you're doing as well. And
then what ends up happening, it just happened recently even. You know, I'm traveling with my wife. We were traveling in New York and DC for our book launch week. And we had a conversation because she doesn't watch my content. And somebody talked to us on a podcast about, you know, just this topic. Hey, you know, there are people who think that you're anti-American and that you're a giant plant and that you're just lying to everybody to recruit for CIA. And my wife, off camera, she was like, that was kind of a funny question. I was like, you don't see the horrible things that people say about me online.
Wow.
And that was kind of the first time that she ever showed enough genuine, undistracted interest to ask me more about it. And I told her some of the, you know, the real feelings that you have when you see all that negative content. And then when we got back home again, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law were watching the kids. And for whatever reason, I saw my father-in-law, I saw Joel, and I said, how would you characterize people's opinion of me online? And he, without even batting an eye, he looked at me and he was like, people love you. He was like, you have a great reputation online. People love what you're doing and they love what you're saying. And I was like, Jesus, I know he sees everything else, but this is what he's choosing to focus on because he's a father figure, because he cares about me, because he knows that that's what you start with. Even if we also start talking about the bad stuff, you start with the good stuff because you love that person.
And that's what you want to amplify.
And there's so much to learn from him because my dad would have been the other way around. My dad, if I would have asked my stepdad the same question, my stepdad would have been like, dude, I don't know how you put up with all those people just talking shit about you.
I remember back in the day, maybe 4 years ago, when we were making videos, and at that time we were one of the biggest channels in the world on Facebook. So we really were reaching about 500 million people a month at that time. It was COVID times. And I remember I wasn't yet having the thick skin for everything. And someone spread some fake news about our channel, and it was a day when we lost 400,000 followers in one day. The things that happened to you in that time when you opened the inbox and you notice how many people wait for you to fall. And I think that experience was healing for me in a weird way, because I realized that in the moment when I received the most amount of negativity and hatred, these were the people who were waiting for me to fall.
It's so true that is the way the negativity works.
Yeah.
Because I come from CIA, we prey on that negativity. The way you get into someone's secret life isn't by validating and empowering them. It's by getting in on their shame. It's by leveraging their guilt against themselves. That's how you find out.
Like, do you say something to like trigger that in them?
You can prime a target to then disclose an area of sensitivity, and then you work on that area that you get. It's kind of like, have you ever had a hole in your clothes and it's a very small hole, and then like you scratch at it and it gets bigger and it gets bigger? That's what you're doing. You're basically priming them to like scratch a hole in their armor, and then you reach in every now and then. You're like, oh, let me see if I can't scratch that. Can you scratch that out? Can you get that? And then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you're in. I don't really know how to prime positivity. but my father-in-law does. So what I learned from him and what I adopt into our life with our kids is what I see from him. And my son and my daughter love their grandfather like they love nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anything I want as a grandfather, it's that. So I know that emulating him is not going to make my life worse.
It must have been so healing for you to take on his surname.
It was so hard.
Oh.
It was so hard legally for a man to change his name.
Why was it difficult for you?
So in the United States, it's traditional for the woman to change her name.
Yeah.
So there's a very established process for changing your name after you get married.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody questions that process when it's the woman changing her name. Credit cards, banks, licenses, nobody has any problem at all when a woman changes her name. But when a man changes his name, now they start to suspect, are you a criminal? Are you doing this to dodge taxes? Are you doing this to hide something? So now changing my name for bank accounts, changing my name for credit cards, changing my name for previous licenses, going back to my university and having my name changed in the records. I had legal foundation to do it, but everybody had a follow-up question.
Right.
And everybody needed additional context and everybody needed additional proof.
So it's long and arduous process.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
Okay, I get it.
And it made it kind of more special to me because now I have a story about it, but also because it took work to take my father-in-law's last name. But that's one of the few things that people don't know about me is that my Bustamante is not my Christian name. It's not my birth name. It's my wife's maiden name. But I cared so much about my father-in-law that I wanted to ensure that my wife and I did everything we could to continue their family name.
You are saying so many things that are so honest about your work at CIA, which is like this statement of too dumb to quit, for example. I wonder, how do people feel about you speaking like that who are still at CIA?
There's a culture in elite services of the United States where they expect you to become a silent professional.
Okay.
Silent professional. Navy SEALs have this pressure. Delta has this pressure. MARSOC has this pressure. FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA. We all have this silent professional. You're supposed to go about your work to the best of your ability and not brag about it, not talk about it, not be showy about it. And then when you leave, you should be thankful that you ever had the opportunity at all. And you should by no means start talking about it after you leave, and you should never capitalize and gain notoriety or wealth or fame based off of the gift you were given to be an elite operator.
Which is everything you do.
Is this, yeah, exactly. Is this something that you are taught and brainwashed when you're in there, or is it just like implicitly learned?
Exactly. It's implicit. It's a cultural element.
Okay.
Right? And you learn that just like so much of the implicit learning you learn in school.
Right.
Right? When you stand a little bit outside a line and somebody's like, no, you're supposed to stay closer in line. Or when you take 2 chocolate milks and they're like, no, you're supposed to only take 1 chocolate milk. It's the same way. So you're inside CIA, you do something good, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I was the one that closed that case. And they're like, no. You don't take credit for that. It's always a team effort. So make sure that when you write the report, you say, due to the hard work of the team, this was successful. And they're like, don't worry, somebody else, somewhere else will give you credit when it comes time to promotion, but you don't ever take the credit for yourself. So that's the culture that's built. And even inside that culture, they are actively telling you and always criticizing anybody on the outside who writes a book.
You.
Who ends up on television, who ends up on a show. Like, people are always criticizing those people inside very verbally, very vocally, so that all the other junior officers can learn the lesson. This is not what you're supposed to do. You're shamed. You're shamed inside.
And so if ever someone were to leave, they're like, I don't want to get that same thing happen to me.
Correct.
Wow.
So it's a huge negative culture.
What made you such a rebel?
I mean, I think there's an element where I've always questioned the norm. And even that norm inside, as I gained years of experience inside CIA, I learned that's just a norm. That's not relevant. It doesn't help the American people. It doesn't help make things better. That's just a weird cultural norm there. So you just kind of learn to accept it. And when you can see it and you can keep a little bit of distance, it helps. There was a very specific moment at CIA where it all came clear for me. When I was a 3rd tour officer, my wife and I were back from the operation for Shadow Cell. We were pregnant and we wanted to have an easy tour so that we could have our child, spend a few years raising our child, and then put him in daycare before we took high-risk operations again. So we went to our CIA leadership and we were like, hey, we would like you to do us a favor for all intents and purposes, right? We've worked really hard for the last 5 years. We plan on working very hard for the rest of our career, but we're going to have a child in a few months. And what we'd really like is a little bit of support so that we can focus on being parents just for a couple of years until we can, kick that rug rat over to a daycare. And the officers that we talked to, 2 different officers in 2 different conversations, they're like, no, that's not how it works. You promised to support the mission first. We care about your family and we'll always care about your family, but the mission has to come first. We knew that wasn't true for everybody. There were plenty of people who got special treatment. There were plenty of people who got assignments from one place to another place specifically to go to a certain school, or because they were second-generation CIA officers, meaning their mom or dad had gone and served before them. So we knew that it wasn't as simple.
It was possible.
It wasn't as simple as just the mission comes first. That was inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
That started me on a process of kind of reflecting on my own experience and reflecting on the culture within the organization. And what I discovered is that everything that the formal education had taught us about how to gain someone's trust, win their loyalty, get into their secret life, leverage them for maximum utility, was all the same stuff that CIA culturally was doing to us.
Yeah.
So the operations that we were running were just a manifestation of the culture that we lived in. Mm. And when it connected in my head, it made total sense because I was like, of course, if you're going to have a senior officer who's mentoring a mid-level officer who's mentoring a junior officer, they've all shared the same training. The only fucking thing they have in common is lying and manipulating and leverage. So it's all they know. So of course the culture inside the building becomes a reflection of the culture of the work because it's all anybody knows. If we even wanted to try to be honest with each other, we wouldn't know how. We weren't hired for that. So it clicked. It became so clear to me, and it became clear to me that I didn't want to be that way forever. Like when you're a 27-year-old officer, a 30-year-old officer, and you're looking at a 55-year-old officer who's a few years away from retirement, and you realize, holy shit, I could spend the next 20 years not making real friends, not having people at work that I can even trust, having to position and jockey and leverage my way into every assignment. Oh, I don't want this. And it became so clear to me.
One of the statements that really stood out for me in your book is where it said that the government owns your body in your own bedroom. Now that is because very often when we have jobs, we kind of get to cut off that life when we get back home.
Yeah.
But when you work in agencies such as CIA, you are working all the time.
All the time.
As a human being, your body is like a vessel for the operations.
I'm honestly so glad that you questioned it, because I also can see how that must have made you so jaded about like life in general, because all you're primed to do and how you are neurologically being wired is to just look at everyone as a target. Like that's all. That's what Jihi does. That's what you're doing on the ground when you're trying to convince someone. So I would imagine that when you got out, that you saw the world very differently, did you not? And is that changing?
Yeah, it's funny. To your first point about being jaded, that was my natural instinct. Once I kind of connected those dots, we were still inside the agency and I was angry. I've always been an angry person. We all have a core emotion. My core emotion is anger. This is another CIA lesson.
Is that your secret life, anger?
I mean, it's not so secret, really.
No.
But we all have a core emotion. My wife's core emotion is sadness. So when all things start to fall apart, she starts to feel sad.
That's me.
When all things start to fall apart, I get angry, right? For some people, when all things fall apart, they start to get joyful. They start to see
opportunity. Anger is like
opportunity.
A secondary emotion, though, right?
It's a primary emotion.
Anger is a primary emotion.
Anger is a primary emotion.
Oh.
Sadness is a primary emotion. Surprise is a primary emotion. Joy is a primary emotion.
Okay.
And disgust is a primary emotion. Okay. So these 5 primary emotions. An excellent way to find all of your primary emotions is on something called the emotions wheel.
Okay.
That's a tool that CIA taught us. So if you look up the emotions wheel, it's a tool that's used by psychiatrists and therapists too. fantastic place, and you can identify your core emotion. And when you know your core emotion, you start to understand how you see everything.
Lovely.
Well, Jihi's core emotion is sadness. So every time I would heap my anger on her, she would respond with sadness. So now I had this counterbalance because I couldn't be angry at her sadness, and she couldn't be sad about my anger. And I had this person that understood the culture of CIA, the work of CIA, the mission of CIA. She understood it just as well as I did. So I always had this counterbalance. So that's what kept me from going too deep.